Well, actually, I learned very quickly that you can be seen as a specialist even if you're not.
How do you stay on top of, what's happening, what's changing and everything else? Because the world is moving fast, right?
Yeah, I mean, a huge amount of communication. I always say you can't over communicate. I mean, this is just not a global thing, but from the when they are global and everybody is remote. So
Yeah.
I sat in an organization. Everyone else had managers outside their door. I didn't have anybody yet. So you have to get used to over communicating. And
I like that. It's all about communication and being there right at the right time, at the right moment as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have been wrong as well. Sometimes there's a blind belief, but that was a good one where I was absolutely correct.
It's good. And it's actually healthier to say, right, I was wrong. And then saying, I saw it differently and now I see it this way. There's different words you can use so you don't say, I was wrong.
Yeah, no, we're never right all the time. It's just good to be right most of the time. Everybody has a voice. And, sometimes you can include everything they say. Sometimes you can include some of what they say. But even if you can't, you just need to go back and say, give them reasons why. So, But if you just ignore it and don't say anything, then guess what? They just go very quiet and they never come back.
Yeah. Everybody needs to have a seat at that table, right? So you're making sure you're listening.
I'm excited for the future of this industry, just purely because, technology just is going to continue to drive our lives. I mean, whatever we do, and you just see everything you touch these days has got something in it from some kind of technology which we're working with every day.
Yeah,
and we almost take it for granted. Yeah, and it's very exciting still.
You are listening to Leadership Manufacturing Podcast, and I'm happy you're here. I'm your host, Sanne Winding. I'm a strategic leader with over 20 years of experience in B2B marketing, product development, and team empowerment. I'm passionate about sharing insight and tools to help professionals enhance their leadership skills. And in each episode, we discuss relevant topics for leaders like you, offering practical strategies and valuable insight. And all this is to help you refine your leadership style and drive success in your role. I interview professionals within the manufacturing industry and the distribution sector, and they all share their knowledge around leadership. So make sure to follow us, like and subscribe. You can check out the YouTube channel and be sure to check the website called leadershipinmanufacturing.com. Welcome to today's episode. Thank you for listening. And I have the pleasure of speaking with Mark Burr-Lonnon. He's the president of the EDAC Group. With over 2 decades of experience in the electronics and the connector industry, Mark has held key leadership roles at companies like Mouse Electronics and TTI. He's known for his strategic vision and commitment to innovation in global operations. So join me, listen to his insights on industry trends, leadership, and the future of technology. Enjoy. Welcome to today's episode with Mark Burr-Lonnon. He's the president of the EDAC Group. And in this episode, we're going to explore how Mark's extensive experience in the electronics and the connector industry has shaped his leadership approach. We're going to touch on the impact of his global roles on his management style, the challenge of leading diverse teams, and also strategies for effective communication across cultures. So join and learn a lot more about leadership in manufacturing and hear about Mark's experience. So Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Sanne.
Awesome. So I almost want to kick off the episodes because I want to hear about the passion. So I want to hear, what's your passion about the electronics industry?
Well, actually, I've been in it since I started my career. So I've had a lot of passion for a long time now. And it's funny, I've managed to keep it for 41 years of being in this business. And I still wake up every day just loving every moment of it. And I don't know many people who do in their job. So I feel absolutely blessed and excited. Blessed being sounding like I'm from Texas, so apologies for everyone else. But, for me, I wake up every morning. I just like to go to work. I like to get involved with people. And I've been very fortunate, as I'll talk about through the next half hour, whatever we are together, about some of the roles I've had globally, because dealing with people across the world is just so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's something you either really love or you really hate or you just don't want to get involved in. But for me, I wake up every morning and I get excited when I speak to someone in China at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then you get involved in the European day. And then you after that, you get involved in the the Americas Day, and then you end up sometime towards midnight back in Asia again. And that all the different things that you get to do, it's just exciting. I can tell you, if I sat in the same office every day, I'd be very bored. I probably would have got out of the industry many years ago. But I wake up every morning and just love it.
Oh, I love to hear that. Yeah. And you just have to have your own little time zone, right? Because you have to talk to the whole world. So, yeah.
Well, actually, I'm my own worst enemy on that, because I have my own time zone, but I also have a stupid rule, which is I never turn my phone off. So I nearly always get phone calls in the middle of the night when I'm traveling. And after I'm halfway through the conversation and someone's asking me to do something very difficult, I say, well, it is the middle of the night here in Shanghai, wherever I am. And they say, oh, sorry, I called. And I say, no, I do it on purpose. I'm just always available. So it's
that's good.
so I try not to make them feel bad. But I always like to answer everyone's questions wherever I am, whatever time.
Yeah, I like that. It's all about communication and being there, right, at the right time, at the right moment as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about leadership. So if you look at your leadership style, how has that evolved over the last couple of years?
Oh, the last couple of years or all the years? I guess that's very different.
You can answer both of them. Go for it.
Let me just, if I go back a bit, and I know we're talking primarily here about global aspects of my career, and why did I really want to get into this? Because there's not many people who wake up in the morning and say, I want to be global, but for me, I grew up in Pakistan. I lived there. I lived in India. I lived in Kenya. I lived in the Yemen, of all places. No, I wasn't a Houthi rebel. And I also lived. I've lived in Europe and the USA. So I've been really most places, not always the best places, but lots of good places where you sort of get that passion early on in your life that traveling has to be in my career somewhere. So then I got into the electronics business straight from university. Funnily enough, there was a lady in a company back then. I won't say the year. Anyone can look at my LinkedIn profile for that. But and I was on this thing called the Milk Round in the UK, where they go around to the universities and they try to pick out new talent. And so anyway, so I went on the Milk Round, and they picked me as new talent, which I found was it's quite concerning when you come out of university, because you're looking for a career. You don't really know what you want to do unless you're a doctor or you're an accountant. Then you're pretty set. But for me, I thought I wanted to go into sales. I wanted to go into marketing. And so anyway, the lady there, when I finished this whole day of discussion, said, you're just the person that we want. And in the back of my head, I'm going, I'm not so sure about this. I don't know anything about electronics. It's all new, and it's why would I want to get into electronics? So funnily enough, I actually said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go to the US for the next 6 to 9 months just to have fun after university. And she said, that's okay. I said, so you'll keep the job open for me, yeah? She says, absolutely. You're just the person that we want. So then I entered the electronics industry into a career which I knew nothing about, where probably everybody else had more reason and belief in me than I did at that point. And so I started working in the UK in the electronics business, and I'll probably, almost definitely are in my career in the electronics business for sure. But it was funny that you enter something without, going through this whole process of, this is what I want to be doing. Sometimes you land on your feet, and it works out well. And for me, it really did.
Yeah. I also see sometimes it's like stepping stones, right? Because I have an engineering as a background, and now I'm in marketing. So it's like stepping stones around, right? So you land on that place where you have the biggest passion.
Well, actually, I learned very quickly that you can be seen as a specialist even if you're not. So the first company I was in, and I joined it as a graduate, and within about a month, I was a specialist on resistors.
Yeah.
I couldn't spell the word when I started. I didn't know what they did. I knew nothing about electronics. I did a degree in sales and marketing. So this was all totally brand new to me. And I thought I was, moving towards a career in sales and marketing, which ultimately, obviously, I have, and then further up than that. But yeah, after about a month, I was the specialist in resistors. But what I realized was that I was just able to get around the data books quicker than anybody else. So if you think about it, you've got customers on the end of a phone in those days coming to you, asking about products, and you can get through the product catalogs really quickly. So no different now. It's just that a specialist could actually just be someone who can get through the website quicker than the person who's on the other end of the phone.
Yeah.
Although many people, engineers now, I mean, the engineers now are probably so much smarter. They find so much of that information themselves. They don't even come to a supplier or distributor anymore.
They find it. Yeah.
Content is so good. Yeah. So I decided early on that, hey, sales and marketing's for me. It seems like fun, and then I had to make it global because that's where I wanted to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it. So how has the leadership style changed the last couple of years?
Well, I guess the last couple of years, I'd say probably it's very different once you start getting into a global role. You start thinking about different things. I mean, you have to think about the culture of the people. First and foremost, you have to want to do the job. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody succeeds in a global role without wanting to do it. You have to want to travel. You have to want to speak to people in different countries.
Yeah.
You have to enjoy working long days. You have to have a passion for everything you do. That's not only global, of course. That's everything. But learning culturally why people do things is really key. I mean, so many countries do things in different ways, and I think some people always think that their way is right, and that can be true, but quite often it's not right. And I always say that when you're talking about cultures, you can globalize lots of things, but there's probably a good 20% of it which you can't globalize, and you have to bring in that local culture. And if you block that culture out, you're missing the opportunity to grow the organization. So for me, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
When it gets on a personal level, I guess trust is a huge thing. It's much easier to, if you're sitting in an office, I'm in Texas, and you sit in an office and you have people in front of you, outside your office, wherever, somewhere in the building, building trust with those people is normally relatively easy if you're a good manager. Yeah, it's not a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
When you don't see them that often, and it's all about communicating over the phone, over Zoom now, and over all the different methods that we have, I think a lot of people learn a lot in COVID. For me, that's my life. I mean, so when it came to COVID, it made no difference to me. It was, apart from the fact I couldn't get on the plane and go see the people.
Yeah.
I'd honed the experiences of having to communicate with people, having to learn to trust them, having to work with them, have to continually keep them up to date with what's happening, because if you don't keep them up to date with what's happening, you always end up with a problem. And one big thing I learned very early on is that just because people speak English, if you're doing a global role from being English, they might speak English and sound 95% that they understand it, and they do. But in some cases, they don't. They speak perfectly, but their understanding is about 50%.
Yeah.
So you come away from a meeting sometimes and you think, that person speaks perfect English, so therefore they understand me.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Quite often that's not the case. So I learned very early on, make sure you're going back to people, you're doing a write-up of the meeting, you're asking them whether they truly, what did they understand from the meeting?
Yeah.
And all those types of things just make it, for me, something where you just hone those skills over your career of being engaged with different types of people.
Yeah.
Whether they're Japanese, whether they're Swedish, whether they're English, or whether they're,
whatever.
It doesn't matter what they are.
No. Yeah,
you go out of your way to make sure you understand them.
Yeah. No, I like it, right? Because you're actually taking that cultural aspect into it to say, how can you make that as an effective communication? So you have some good tools, right? And a lot of experience as well. how to solve that. How do you teach then your team to do, be as awesome as you are then of creating effective communication across cultures?
Yeah, a lot of passion goes a long way, to be honest. I mean, if you can't do anything passionately, it tends not to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to get people to believe in the overall goal. Yeah, they have to make sure that they're part of that overall goal.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the bigger an organization gets, people feel like they're getting lost. The mothership is doing all this. But I always used to say, think of it from the standpoint of being in a 4-person office on the other side of the world. You're working for the same company, but it's very different sitting in an office where there's 2,000 people versus sitting in an office where there's 4 people. But you have to try to have a business identity which runs through the company. But again, don't lose the local identity. I mean, and you have to do things which you never expect to have to do. I mean, I remember opening an office in Penang.
Yeah.
And my manager there, who looked after Asia for me, came back and said, "We got an office park." I said, "Great, where is it?" He said, "Well, we're just moving out of the TTI office. We sort of shared an office with TTI at that point, and we were going to go alone for the first time. So this was kind of a big thing, yeah."
Yeah.
So he came back and said, "But the door's in the wrong place." I said, "Sorry?"
Yeah.
He said, "The door's in the wrong place." Well, of course, it's, in different parts of the world, there's, certain things have to be in certain places for good luck. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had to invest in the door being moved to the other side. It was literally moving this thing about 5 feet. Yeah. But again, it's those cultural things that you have to do for the people locally, where they go, okay, the management gets it. They feel for us. They understand what we're trying to do. And by doing that, you sort of get a long way down the path, which otherwise, if you just say, "No, we're moving in here, the door's staying where it is, please be quiet, just get on with your work."
Yeah. Yeah. By actually, moving that door, you also show a lot of respect, right, to that culture and the region. So and that's a really great example, even though it's just a door, right? But it
was just a door, yeah. Well, and originally I thought it was just a door too. And,
okay,
but actually, I learned very quickly just saying, but you start to listen more. I think when you have people overseas and you have to get behind what's in their head, because sometimes they don't tell you, and you have to pull it out of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But once you pull it out of them, that the next time they get a bit better, and then the more you deal with them, you don't have to pull it out with them anymore. They're full on. They're telling you everything, and sometimes you may think, "Oh my God, you're telling me too much now," but really, it's that's the fun of it for me. I mean, it's just I think every day, you said at the beginning about passion in the industry. I learn something every day. I mean, and it was quite funny when I started at Mauser, which was my last company. There was as soon as I got there, we started this thing which was a global meeting, and so I had about 3 of these, and lots of things were starting to happen. We were a small local distributor. We were looking to become global. We were very small globally at that point. And after a few of these meetings, someone said, "So when do we finish these?" I said, "We don't finish them."
No.
And they looked at me and said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Everything we do from this point on is global." I said, "We're not a North American distributor anymore. We're a global distributor.
Yeah.
And we will learn things every day." And I mean, even today, I mean, tomorrow there's going to be a whole bunch of new tariffs, and the last 3 months have been people trying to get their head around tariffs. So again, you learn something every day. Sometimes it's government, sometimes it's industries, sometimes it's just things that you have to do. But every day there's a new learning experience in a different country.
Yeah.
One role I would hate to do would be HR, because HR in different countries is like, I always think I could have got in lots of trouble in my career if I didn't have HR. So
not HR, no. But so it's funny because what you're saying, what you're learning, right? Because actually one of my questions here as well was like to find out, how do you learn? So how do you stay on top of, what's happening, what's changing and everything else? Because the world is moving fast, right?
Yeah, I mean, a huge amount of communication. I mean, I always say you can't over communicate. I mean, this is just not a global thing, but from the when they are global and everybody is remote. So
Yeah.
I sat in an organization. Everyone else had managers outside their door. I didn't have anybody yet. So you have to get used to over communicating. And so yeah, I used to start my day talking to China, understanding what was happening there.
Yeah.
Then speak to Europe and find out what was happening there, talking to lots of different people.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was a lot of listening. Sometimes it was some telling people what was happening and understanding their feedback to what was about to happen. And then reevaluating what maybe we're doing, because sometimes that local input really made a huge difference. And sometimes it's very easy to say, well, as a corporation, this is what we want to do.
Yeah.
Well, it is what we want to do, but at the same time, sometimes you can't always do exactly what you want to do. You just have to listen to some of the people in different parts of the world. So yeah, a huge amount of communication for sure, and listening's a big thing. I mean, it's very easy not to listen. I mean, as the old saying is, you got two ears and one mouth. I mean, but I think a lot of people just don't follow that concept, and they're going to talk and talk and talk and talk, and never do they listen to the inputs of the people. And I've always made it throughout my career that listen to these people. They're not stupid. And I think some corporate organizations, they don't do it on purpose, but sometimes it's very easy to think, well, what do they know? I mean, they're on the other side of the world. It's a small business over there. Most of our business comes from here, and this place doesn't count. No, everybody has a voice. And, sometimes you can include everything they say. Sometimes you can include some of what they say. But even if you can't, you just need to go back and say, give them reasons why. So if you can't do what they want, at least communicate back and say, look, heard your input. It's a really valid input, but on this occasion, we can't do it. I mean, and here's the reasons why. Next time, we'll still have that input and we still want your input.
Yeah.
But if you just ignore it and don't say anything, then guess what? They just go very quiet and they never come back.
Yeah. Everybody needs to have a seat at that table, right? So you're making sure you're listening. Hey, I'm just pausing the episode for a few seconds because I want to make sure that we have a newsletter. So sign up on leadershipinmanufacturing.com and we send out when there's a new episode, if we have some news or if we have a new blog. So sign up today. Back to the episode. So I want to touch, so original, right? I'm from Denmark. So being in the US, and I've been here many, many, many years, I have my style, right, of communicating. And maybe it's sometimes a little bit too direct because I just saying, this is it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure you being in this global role for that many years and with your passion and all your background on traveling as well, how do you get a team? Because you will have so many different individuals, right? Having different ways of communicating. How do you make sure to get them on that same page? Because sometimes you can't change a person, right? You shouldn't, right? Because we all want to be different. That's what makes it even more fun and innovative and getting to to grow a company. But there is different personalities. How do you get them together to understand each other?
Well, I guess I've been pretty lucky in the last 20 years, really. I mean, 16 at Bowser, and the last 5 months at EDAC is when you get to pick most of the team, it is easier. Yeah. So if you're starting in an organization whereby they're not there, you can pick people who A, fit the organization, B, pick the needs.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, really, you have the ability to mold them into the team that you want. So you have, different people with different strengths. And I'm currently in the position at EDAC of putting together a global marketing team.
Yeah.
And the first thing I'm trying to do there is to work out the strengths of everybody to try to, get certain people to do certain things, because overall, I think they all fit into it nicely. Now I've got people already, so this was a lot harder, but I think I may have got lucky because someone's good on the web and someone's good at other parts of marketing. So I think I may have got lucky, but at Mauser is very much a case of, okay, I need to pick people. I need to pick someone for sales and marketing for Asia, someone for sales and marketing for Europe, and these are the types of people that I believe I need. And luckily, over my career prior to that, I think I knew what I needed.
Yeah.
So I think I picked well, and the people always stayed with me. I mean, I think that says something, that if you don't lose staff, I lost one member of staff in my whole career so far who I didn't want to lose. Now we've all lost people who we maybe wanted to lose, but I've only lost one who I really wanted to keep.
That was not the plan.
So that was, I always think, after 41 years, that's pretty good. So
sign.
I think that sort of shows that from a leadership standpoint it's good, but it also shows that it's not all about the leader, it's about the team. And if the team gels together, then whatever happens, whether it's good or bad, they want to stay together too as a team. And that's really what I managed to focus on.
So what you're saying is also like you're molding the people or the employees, right, within that team. So you're good at, I don't know if you want to say X-raying or reading people and understand their skill set, so you can put them in the right team so they actually fit that right spot. And then you have like a mastermind of a group that just can execute.
Yeah, I shouldn't say this probably, because there's probably someone from HR listening somewhere in the world and say you shouldn't do that. But I always know within about 30 seconds of someone coming in being interviewed whether they're the right person or not.
You're not the only one there. You just know, right?
You just have a gut feel. It's the way they come in. It's the way they start the conversation. And you've already read up about them and you know their skills.
Yeah.
You believe half of what they say as well,
But you're right. It's and I have the same experience when I've been adding, employee of team members. You just know in that beginning. I think in the beginning where I do like a quick screening and then I give a call, and then how they answer the phone also, just if they don't say their full name and just saying, hey, I'm like, okay, you knew I was calling because we planned it. So a little bit more prepared, right? Yeah, it's not new. So that's always, I have like little steps to say, okay, did they pass my answer the phone first? But it's right. You just know how they're going to be and how they're going to show up and how they're going to approach. And if you already know, right, that they have, the skills of like solving issues or problems and have a passion, right? You can put them in anywhere almost, and they will figure it out, right?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is these days, there's so many smart people about. I mean, it's I think the industry is now attracting a lot of people to it, which is good, because I think it went through a period of nobody wanted to be in hardware. I mean, everyone disappeared off in the software for years, and we suddenly got to this position whereby there was no real new blood coming in. But I think what we're finding at the minute is that there is a lot of new blood which has come in probably the last 5, 6 to 10 years maybe. But before that, there was probably 10 years of not much happening. And I kept sitting there going, where are these people coming from? They need to start coming in. But now they're there and they're smart, and it's really good for the industry. And I'm excited. Even when I'm not in the industry anymore, at some point, I'm excited for the future of this industry, just purely because, technology just is going to continue to drive our lives. I mean, whatever we do, and you just see everything you touch these days has got something in it from some kind of technology which we're working with every day. And we almost take it for granted. And it's very exciting still.
Yeah, it is. And it's just going fast as well. I want to touch about, how do you know if you're a good leader? And you did touch on it already, right? By saying you did not lose anybody within your team except one really good person. But how are there other indicators that you know that you are a good leader?
I think I'd say probably the best one on that is if your boss leaves you alone and doesn't feel like he needs to tell you anything, you're probably doing a good job. Doesn't mean you're a great leader, but it probably means you are, because you're not seeing the turnover of staff. when the staff are ever met by anyone else in the organization, they see happy staff, they see committed staff, they see hardworking staff.
Yeah.
They see staff who are moving in the right direction, doing all the right things. So I think, all those things. And then at the end of it, and I always say the thing that always comes at the end of it is results. I mean, but a lot of people always focus on, well, let's focus on the results. That's what we need to do. I've always come at from the other standpoint and said, if we do the right things, the results will come. And they always have. I mean, so just make sure that the results are driven through all the team and the people that you have.
Yeah.
And if they're doing the right things, which sometimes you're telling them the right things to do, sometimes they're coming up with the right things to do. Mostly now it's more of a team effort. That there's a lot more feedback now than there used to be, because it used to be, I guess, in the early days of my career, the boss told you what to do and that was it.
Yeah.
I think now there's a much more coordination, across companies, across teams, and they're coming up with some fantastic things. And if you don't listen to the people, all companies are going to struggle. And I think the other thing is, whether they're baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Z, you have to accept it. I mean, because everybody is offering something different. A lot of them don't always get on, because they're all, one's over here on the right, one's over here on the left, and one's behind and one's in front. Some have got high technical expertise and some have zero technical expertise, but that doesn't mean it can't work as a good team. And that's really another thing. It's always exciting to do that. I mean, I think some people who only see, one section of the population saying, well, these people are my people, these are the best. It doesn't work anymore. Yeah.
No, I like it. It's the whole having like a good diversity of everything, right? It just, if it's the background, right, it's your experience, it just gives so much more team dynamic. That's how I see it. But everybody has to still have to be open-minded, right? To say, hey, this is the team and we'll listen to everyone. And it takes time to get everything in the right direction. But it's worth it, definitely.
Yeah, I think one thing, belief's a big thing, and I'll give you a funny example, actually. That when you get to the point of believing in what you do, and you really do know you're right, yeah. And I'll give you an example here. That I signed up a consultant in Japan. Okay, this was many years ago. The Japanese culture is very different. Seniority means a lot. And this guy, he'd been in the industry 55 years. He did a fantastic job in all the places that he was in. And, I took him on as a consultant because although I knew Japan, I felt like we needed to get closer to some of the Japanese customers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So early on in that, I was told by him that this is never going to work, Mark. It's never going to work. I don't think you're right. But I stuck by my guns and I said, look, I hear what you say.
Yeah.
I believe it's going to work, and went through this thing. And we worked together for a number of years. After 2 years, he wrote a book about what my company did at that point and how good we were.
Oh, wow.
And why the Japanese needed what we did, which I found is quite funny. So it took him 2 years to get from everything you're saying, I don't believe you're right, to I'm now going to write a book about you did it so well. And you can buy it on Amazon. The book's on Amazon, and it was kind of funny though. But I took a huge amount of pride, when he came back and said, I want to write a book about what you've done here. Your company's done such a good job. I want to write a book, and I want to tell all the Japanese customers about how good your model is, how it works, why it works, and why if you don't follow the principles in Japan will get further behind, because the Japanese have this thing about, we came a long way very quickly and then sort of stopped growing and being part of everything, and China started to take over as Japan, lost its way a bit.
Yeah.
And he was really saying, well, that's why the Japanese need to do something different. So it was kind of just an interesting story for you. I thought I'd share.
Yeah, no, it's again, right? It's touching on that, on the culture as well, but also how do you believe on your passion, and then reflecting back that things, believe in each other.
Yeah, I have been wrong as well. So sometimes there's a blind belief, but that was a good one where I was absolutely correct.
It's good, and it's actually healthier to say, right, I was wrong, and then saying, oh, I saw it differently, and now I see it this way. There's different words you can use, so you don't say I was wrong.
Yeah, no, we're never right all the time. It's just good to be right most of the time, and I always find myself with people that I let them make mistakes. I mean, it's hard. I mean, they're getting instructions in a different language quite often, and they make mistakes, not because they really did it wrong. They just didn't quite understand what they were being asked to do, and they'll come back and say, "Well, I've done this, and this," and then you look at them and say, "Well, that's not what was needed." And they said, but what you said here is exactly what I've done." I said, "No, I think there's a miscommunication here because." And then you reread what you said, and you go, okay, I can understand how you got. I can now understand how you got there. So what you write and how you write it, if you are following up on things, also has to be very clear, concise, but also you need to talk things through quite often and just say, do you really understand what I'm asking you to do? Because otherwise, you may be wasting your time, and then come back on something where you think you've done a good job, but you haven't.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. You have to be on target. So we talked about like new talent, right? And you're saying it's already coming into the industry, which is really great to see. But what kind of advice would you give like a new leader who's going to transition into a more global role? What advice would you give them?
Well, I have a passion for it for the start. I mean, make sure you really want to do it. It's not an easy role to do. Yeah.
No.
There's not that many people in the industry who know all about Asia, all about Europe, all about the Americas. Okay, so I've been lucky over my career to become a specialist everywhere.
Yeah.
I've also personally worked in distribution. I've worked for a manufacturer. I've worked for an EMS. So I've seen it from all sides of that as well.
Yeah.
So really build up your skills. Certainly, the more you understand about the industry, the more accepted you're going to be when you go to these other countries. So be a specialist, but a generalist at the same time. So you have to know a lot about everything.
Yeah.
But listen to what these people have got to say. It's just so big that if you're not listening to what people say in the countries, you don't have the makeup to do the job. I mean, if you find you're continually arguing with people on the other side of the world, you're not the right person to do the job. Make sure that you trust the people who you hire.
Yeah.
If they're your hire, it's much easier to do because you hired them.
Yeah.
But even if you don't, you've got to work towards that trust of, and in some countries that trust is huge. I mean, Japan, China, a lot of Asia. It's big in the rest of the world, but it's a real big thing there, and they'll all tell you that you have to gain our trust before we actually get anywhere. So so many things like that. Yeah.
Well, that's some really good advice. That is. So now, if you have to reflect back, Mark, and say, what kind of advice would you give yourself if you look like 10 or maybe 15 years back? What would that be?
So what would I have done differently? Or
if you're looking at yourself saying, right, if you should give yourself an advice and look at you, right, AI copy of you, but 10, 15 years ago. No, maybe not AI, but what?
Well, I guess the AI copy of me would be would speak more languages better than I do, and
do that. Yeah.
I think when you come from the English-speaking world, there's almost an arrogance that everyone will speak English, and I get by in certain languages. I can get by in French. I can get by in German.
Yeah.
But I never spent enough time really learning to speak Chinese, Japanese. In a global role, it's tough because you can't learn them all. Yeah, unless you're someone who picks up languages very quickly. But if there was an AI version of me, the first plugin I would put in there would be languages.
Yeah.
because I think that makes a huge difference in the communication. Which I think in the early days, I think if nobody understood you, you just spoke louder, and you know it's wrong.
Yeah.
But you think that they're going to understand you, and they don't. They still don't understand you. So the big one really would be language. And I would love to get an AI plugin which I could just stick in, and I could speak every language. And I know people who work for me who spoke 8 languages and 6 languages, and I always remember one. And there was a lady who worked for me in Munich, and I didn't know she spoke a lot of languages. I read the CV, employed her, and thought she'd been doing some translation. But you make the assumption that someone who's Swedish and working in Germany speaks Swedish, German, and English, maybe.
Yeah.
So I had a meeting in Texas, and suddenly I heard a voice, and I could hear this lady speaking in Chinese. So I turned around, and she was talking full-blown Chinese to the Chinese team, and
what a gold mine!
I didn't know you spoke Chinese. She says, "Yeah, I used to live in Shanghai, and I learned Chinese." And she was one of those people who could just learn languages very well, very quickly. But it just seemed really weird. There was this, short, petite blonde from Sweden speaking perfect Chinese with the team who'd been brought over from China. And it's just one of those moments which you always remember that, I wish I could do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good. And it's just, and bless everyone who can speak a lot of languages. I can speak Danish and English, but I forgot the French I learned in high school and the German that I learned in elementary. So maybe it's back here somewhere, but
maybe, yeah. Maybe. I don't think you ever forget it. It's a bit like skiing. I love to ski, and it's a bit like that. The first couple of seconds you get on the slopes, you think, I'm not sure I can do this, and you remember it straight away. And languages don't take long to come back, although I know when I used to travel around Europe a lot, I always used to have the problem sometimes. When you get out of a taxi and you've just come from France, and you've gone from France to Germany, and you start speaking French to the German taxi driver, and you're like, oh no, hold on, that's not correct.
Yeah, that's not correct.
So you have to rethink sometimes, Joe.
Yeah, I think I have some. It happens sometimes. I will talk to with a colleague, and then suddenly if I'm turning around, I'll speak Danish. And they look at me like, what happened there? And my brain just like, I think I know this person as much. I don't know what the trigger is, but it's been happening, not much, but it just sometimes it happens. Either it's because I'm just even more relaxed, or I know that person for so many years or something. And then I'm like, oh, I need to speak English. And then we switch again.
Yeah.
So, it happens. So thank you, Mark, so much. I think just to hear your passion, and you have a passion for the industry. I love it, because that's what we need. And I have a passion as well, but it's just so nice to hear somebody with a passion, how you describe it. And just to understand the culture, and your example with Japan, I love it. And with the door as well, it just gives more that you actually respect and understand culture, and that will give you a much better global team. It's just the way to do it. So, and then the last one, I just made my little note here to listen. You can never go wrong if you listen. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I love that you're here. And as you can hear, I have a passion for this podcast. So I want to make sure that you're staying in the loop. Please check out leadershipmanufacturing.com. We have a newsletter there. Sign up for it so you are in the loop. And as well, make sure that you check out our YouTube channel, which is called Leadership in Manufacturing. Make sure you subscribe, because then you will get a lot more information and great details to become this much better leader. So check it out. We're on Facebook and Instagram as well, if that's where you want to scroll with your fingers. So check it out. We're like all over. But remember, stay curious, keep learning.